Hello and welcome to week 3 of Soaking Up the Synchros, or as my daughter called it the other day, Syncing Up the Psychos. Last week it was me solo on my own, but this week we have Ali back with us. So this week, since I was talking about my interests and my work last week, we decided that this week we would introduce Ali a little bit more, and Ali would talk about her story. And we're going to be focusing in this week on addiction and Alison's experience with alcohol addiction. So Ali, it's kind of like an interview setting that we've got going on this week, isn't it? So if you want to tell us about how this all started and what your experience is and how this all began for you.
Yeah, so basically it started off with a marriage at 23, which went on for a lot of years till I was 37 and continued on really after that, after we were abroad. An abusive relationship based on narcissism, which I only found out about 2 years ago that was the case. That's what it was. And narcissism can often cause addictions because you're trying to numb things, basically. So quite often people have addictions when they come out of a narcissistic abusive relationship. So that's basically where it came from. So what happened was, over the years, it got worse and worse to the point where I'd actually lost myself completely. And I ended up with complex PTSD, which I've now been diagnosed with. So long haul to try and be cured from that. But luckily the alcohol is gone now. It's not an addiction anymore. I think it was more of a dependency than addiction, because I could physically go without it, but I wanted it to take away, to numb everything that was happening in my life at that time, which was just getting worse and worse. So that's basically where it started.
Yeah. So you mentioned that at the beginning, when you were first with this man who you had this relationship with, that it started off with a kind of sly, oh, I'll pour you a drink tonight, babe. And, it was like he was doing you a favor. But what do you feel now looking back? What do you feel was the actual real motive behind all of that?
Well, to get what he wanted out of me, basically. I was basically a tool for him, his little toy, rather than somebody that he loved. I don't think narcissistic people are capable of proper love, not even with their own children, which I've witnessed myself. I think they want certain things to make themselves feel good, to inflate their ego, make them feel special, make them feel admired and adored. That's basically what they run off. And that's basically what he was doing. He realised very quickly that I'd had enough, but by then I'd got 2 children with him. So I started taking the drinks, basically, run me a bath, bring me a drink. And it was sort of like, I think that's how it started, So we got into
was he trying to like loosen you up and loosen up your inhibitions and things like that?
Because sexuality, their main aims, they are quite addicted to it themselves. They've got addictive personalities usually themselves as well, and sex is usually one of them. So that's what he'd attempt to do. And then the next day it'd be, you shouldn't be drinking. Have you seen how much you drank? So he'd be popping it in the drink, or he'd be drinking it and then gaslighting me and saying, did you see how much you drank? And I'm thinking, there's no way I drank that much. And then you start to think, I'm going mad. Did I drink that much? Was that? And then it goes on like that. So it's a cycle of lots of different ways to make a person feel like they're going insane, basically. And the term is called gaslighting, from the 1940s film Gaslight, which is very interesting.
So it's a really complex situation. There's so many undercurrents and so many different things that are going on within this sort of relationship. But as it was developing, you were taking the drinks and drinking, but then as it developed and his kind of hold on you became stronger, and the gaslighting was making you feel a little bit, crazy. You didn't know, the way that he was making you feel was as if you were going mad. And you began to obviously feel unhappy in this relationship because you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't genuinely love you, isn't genuinely caring for you, making you question your own sanity. So your relationship with drink began to change then at that point, would you say, that it became more of a coping mechanism, rather than it being him plying you with drink, you then became to need the drink for your own reasons?
Yeah, it was never sort of a physical addiction where I'd wake up in the morning and need a drink or anything like that. What it was, when he was home from work, I'd hear the key in the door. Like, making me shudder now thinking about it because it's a trigger, but I'd hear the key in the door and think, oh shit, so then he'd bring in a bottle of wine, or I'd have already got a bottle of wine, and we'd drink it together, but there'd always be more. So I started to drink to completely numb the relationship because I hated being in it so much, but I couldn't get out of it. As you know, being my friend for 7 years, I tried so many times to get out of this abusive relationship. It was actually you that were the one that told me that this was what it was. It's abusive. And I was like, abusive, is it? So I wasn't even aware. Been so many years. So it's because I was only 23 when I was with him, and I had 2 boys already. Came in like Mr. Knight in shining armor. I'll save you, love. I'll buy your house off your ex-partner, and I'll do all these things. Were building up to a very clever, manipulative way of destroying my life. And the alcohol was one of them. And I've only just recently been able to stop myself from using it to numb everything that's happened.
Yeah.
It's not been easy, but I haven't actually used any specific tools to do that, other than music, bit of meditation, basically getting outside in nature, things like that. But there did come a time where I thought, is there ever going to go a night where I get to sort of 7 o'clock and I'm like, right, the only way I'm going to sleep, the only way I'm going to be able to relax or stop being hyper vigilant about everything, because that is one of the other things, obviously, the complex PTSD that came with it. Every single noise makes you jump. If there's a loud bang or somebody knocks on the door, you like jump out of your skin, or just lots of different things. And the alcohol will take those away to a point, or it will numb them down or calm them down. And I wasn't sure what else you could do to replace what alcohol would do for you. So, but I know it's extremely common because obviously I'm in a lot of women's support groups. I've got domestic abuse workers. I've also got a freedom program that I've been doing on abusive behaviour, and that is what I think every woman should do, that really, before they get into any relationship. Not just women, men, actually, because there are, obviously, it's not just about women being abused, men get the same, but I think it's more common women. But that has helped me to understand what they call red flags, to not get myself into a situation like that ever again.
Yeah. But I mean, you broke up with this man a few years ago now. I mean, what year was it that you actually did eventually? I mean, I know you tried a few times before it actually did come to an end. You tried to end the relationship and he wasn't having it. But when you actually did finally manage to break away from him, that it was a good few years ago now, wasn't it?
It was in 2017, January.
Right, so nearly 4 years ago, and you've literally only just now become strong enough to actually give up the drink. Really, you've been using it to numb everything, even though he's not in your life anymore, you've still been needing the alcohol to numb all of the effects. So do you feel, sorry, I'm just wondering, do you feel like you have an addiction to alcohol? Do you feel like you are addicted to it?
What I'm addicted to is the feeling of not having that fear, stress. What complex PTSD does to the body, it is literally part of your brain is actually damaged. They say it's brain damage. Once it becomes complex PTSD, it's extremely difficult to get rid of it. But there's lots of different symptoms of that. But I'm not physically addicted. Haven't had a drink since Sunday night. Had half a bottle of wine. Didn't take it too far, because there was a point where if I was going to get wine, I could only make sure I got 1 bottle. Mustn't have more than that in the house, because I could go 4 days without drinking it and feel like shit. Not shit as in physically, but just feel low and like, oh, everything's a problem and everything's stressful, anxiety through the roof, depression. But then if I get a bottle of wine, I'd only have to get the one, because if I got the two, I drink the two. So, and it was coming to 2 bottles weren't affecting me. So I could quite easily sit of an evening, start cooking dinner, drink the 1 bottle quite quickly, and then go on to the second. That is a quite common thing in women as well who've been abused. They can drink absolutely loads. I know one lady who can drink 3 bottles of wine a night, and she just can't stop herself. She's obviously physically addicted now. Starts off with a quick drink in the morning, and then it's 3 bottles of wine, and then that, and what that is doing to your body is unthinkable.
So, but for you, it's more of it's an emotional numbing dependency that you had.
It's never been physical. I've never had the shakes, or never woke up in the morning and thought, oh, I need to.
So it's like an escape. It's an escape for you rather than a physical addiction. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I've gone 3 weeks without it, just wanted it but didn't drink it. So you can tell it's not a physical thing, it's more of a mental thing. It's just a habit that I've got into over the years. The evening and wind down. And
but the other thing that I'm aware has happened to you in this kind of process with the alcohol and the PTSD is that the numbness that you feel when you're drinking the alcohol, so the alcohol is there as a kind of escape for you to numb all your emotions, but then that developed over time to the point where your emotions became kind of flatlined, and you had this numbness all the while, like your emotions just became like you were numb all the while. So the effect of having this alcohol to dampen your emotions became like a permanent state for you.
Yes, but I think a lot of that, it could partly be down to the alcohol, but it's also the complex PTSD that is one of the symptoms. So because your brain is trying to block out the pain and the anxiety and all the symptoms, it's also blocking out everything. I had that explained by a counsellor, that's what my brain is basically doing, because I'm trying to numb out such horrible thoughts and such nasty flashbacks and things like that it became you have numb everything. So I'm only just starting to get my creativity back. You know what I was like before all this happened. I think it's only been the last 3 years really that I've realised there's become a really big problem. I think I remember telling you sort of 3 years ago, I just don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. It's Christmas. The kids are going to open their presents. I used to love to see them open their presents. Things like that, going on holiday. Everything stopped becoming exciting. Everything became numb and flat. And I was frightened, actually. I was quite frightened. But when the first drink goes down, you feel a little bit of, oh, I feel something.
Right. So it became a kind of the opposite. So whereas before it was to numb, it turned into the alcohol was the only thing that actually made you feel anything after a while.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And, things like, it was almost like I was doing the backwards thing of what he used to take the piss out of me. Like when I first met him, I was really outgoing. I was enjoying my life. I was working as a voluntary assistant in a school. I was running a club for shy children. I was doing all sorts. And as you know, gradually, you don't need to be doing that, love. Maybe you should stop doing that. Perhaps that's too much for you, love. So I got pregnant quite quickly, which is a narcissistic trap as well. They get you pregnant, marry you as quickly as they possibly can. They move on. And if they can't do that with you, they move on to the next one because they're scared, because they know if they don't trap you, they can only keep it going for a couple of years maximum, really, maybe 2 to 3 years. They can keep this behaviour going where they love bombing you, they call it. So all the things that I was doing before. So if I'd be having a dance in my kitchen or, enjoying myself, you'd come in, lovely, beautiful. Was one.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yes, I tell you at the time, actually. So then you're, oh, I feel stupid, or I feel embarrassed. And then they knock and chip away at your confidence until you just become a shadow of your former self. You're like a shell and you're like, where have I gone? And you don't even know it's happening. They so clearly do it, little bit at a time. Oh, you're gonna wear that, are you, love? Oh, your makeup looks a bit dodgy, or something like that. And before you know it, you feel absolutely shit. And also what they do it for is because they don't want you to go off with someone else, and they're petrified. So they want you to feel like you're a piece of crap, basically, and you're not pretty and you're not clever. And they start off, I think they go for successful people at quite outgoing, have lots of friends, and then they start to remove your friends and all of those things. It's a very long subject, which probably would take an entire video. Obviously, this is where it's come from, because I wasn't like that before. When my boys were little, I didn't drink a thing, hardly ever. If I went out, it was very rare. I used to go out with my friend Claire. It was once every 2 weeks maximum, if I was lucky. And we used to have a drink on a Saturday night, wake up in the morning, feel really guilty. Oh, we're mums, we shouldn't be doing that. We didn't drink, you know, none of us did. So it didn't happen until I think after I had Noah, which was 2012. No, 2012, 2008 was where the drink started. Because after I had Noah, I was so fed up, miserable. I knew I didn't want to be with him right back then. I knew I'd made a massive mistake. And he'd bring back a bottle of wine. We started sharing one, because obviously I didn't drink anything at all when I was pregnant. We share a bottle, and then he'd want the last glass, and it'd become like, I feel better when I drink. Then we'd have a bottle each. So he'd bring us 2 bottles. We'd sit and have a bottle each, and the telly would be on, and I'd be numb, because you know how I feel about telly. I'd be like, oh, and it was always his choice as well. So it was just everything revolved around this man who was just an absolute control freak. And I didn't even know, didn't see it coming, didn't know it was that. I didn't know why I was fed up, didn't know I was losing myself. But now I do. So now that I know, now that I've worked it out and I've worked on it, and I'm having counselling and on the list for cognitive behavioural therapy as well, which apparently is really good. There's also something called EMDR, can't remember what it stands for, but it's something to do with using eye movement to recite what's happened to you. And apparently it's alcoholism caused by complex PTSD as well. So PTSD is usually caused by a sudden event, like they often have it if they've been in the war and seen something awful, like somebody shot. They call that PTSD because it's a one-off event that triggers them every time they think of it, flashbacks, nightmares, that kind of thing. When it's complex, it's over a long period of time. So that's what the difference is, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to talk about the 12-step recovery for addiction. I know Russell Brand, I follow Russell Brand, and he talks about this a lot, because he was addicted to a few things, actually, wasn't he? He was addicted to drugs, addicted to sex. I mean, there's so many different types of addiction. I've been myself addicted to cigarettes, and I quit smoking in 2012. I think I've got a bit of a food sugar addiction myself. I can't go a day without eating some form of bread or cake or chocolate. There's people that are addicted to work, to computer games, gambling. There's all sorts of, and it's all about an escape a lot of the time, isn't it? It's all about, like you say, numbing things down. But I was going to talk anyway about the 12-step recovery that Russell Brand talks a lot about, and it's based very much in spirituality. It's a very spiritual approach to take to the recovery for addiction. So do you mind if I just talk a little bit about this?
That sounds interesting.
With the 12-step recovery, the 12 steps are honesty. So it's acknowledging that you have a problem that you yourself are powerless to actually resolve. And then step 2 is faith, and it's actually having this faith and the belief in a higher power that can help you overcome this addiction. You know how I am with my faith. It's unshakable. And a lot of these, a lot of the things in the 12-step process, it's all very much linked into the work that you do if you have a spiritual practice. So step 3 is surrender, turning it all over to the higher power, soul searching, going inside and admitting to yourself the wrongs that you did, because a lot of addictions can make you do pretty atrocious things some of the time. I mean, obviously, if you're addicted to drugs, you've got to get the drugs, haven't you? Some people can behave atrociously, completely not being themselves. And I'm sure there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt involved in this process. It must be absolutely so harrowing when you get to this point and you're soul searching and you're remembering the things that you've done, the people that you've hurt. I just can't imagine how hard this part of the process must be for people that have been, you know, in really awful situations in terms of their addictions and the things that, you know, people might have done as a result of their addictions, you know. So at this stage, you're soul searching, you're going inside, you're admitting to yourself what you have done, who you have wronged, who you have hurt. Oh, can you imagine that? It must be so hard. But then the next step is integrity and admitting these wrongs and admitting, yes, I have hurt these people. What I did was wrong. And then step 6 is acceptance. And again, this part of it is accepting, okay, yes, I did these things. You can't change that. You can't control the past. You know, there's nothing that you can do to change that now. You must let that go. You've got to go back again, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I've not been through the process myself, but I'm imagining that once you get to this part, this part where you're going inside, you're doing it with integrity to admit the wrongs that you've done, and then accepting that that is part of your story, that's part of your journey now, and you can't change any of that. You've got to go then, I would imagine, back to step 3 where you surrender and you let that go and you go, okay, I pass that up to the higher power, to God, whatever you call it. You know, that is now, I give all of this to you, and you accept it as part of yourself, as part of your journey. And then you go into the energy of humility. I just can't imagine how. I mean, I do know of a few people. I don't know if they're not close to me, but I know of a few people that have been through this process. And I just think it must be such a journey, just so many highs and so many lows. And by the time you get to number 7, you're in the energy of humility, and you're asking this higher power, help me. This is the point that you're saying, I really need help. Please help me. I need you to support me and take me through this. Can you imagine being in that position?
I've been there. That's what I've been doing recently, actually. That's been the part I've obviously, have I skipped steps? I don't know. I mean, I don't have too much guilt. I haven't done awful things caused by alcohol, luckily, other than maybe fall asleep, which is probably not the best idea. Falling asleep downstairs, but that was my main aim anyway, fall asleep not upstairs. But apart from that, luckily, I haven't got too many people to apologise to, because I've not really, it wasn't at that level where I was doing crazy stuff or anything. I was a mum and I was having to hold that up. So I gradually built my tolerance up. But I have asked for the higher power to help me recently.
Yeah.
I've been working on that quite a bit.
Yeah. So have you looked into the 12-step recovery process at all? Is that something that you do in your therapy with your counsellor or anything like that?
No, I've never actually gone to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I do know that people who've got a severe problem, as in physically addicted or having a problem in a way that it's wrecking their lives, I know that they have gone to it. Now, some people don't like it, from what I can gather, because of this spiritual side, because they don't understand it. They don't know what this thing is, this higher power. People talk about God and automatically it becomes Christian or Catholic or Protestant or whatever you want to call it. And there's that stigma attached to religious behaviours. And obviously people who've been in addictive places are very low, and they've lost their spiritual side. So they don't know what they're asking. They don't know who they're asking for. It's like, is it a man in the sky? Is it? And that puts a lot of alcoholics and drug users off the 12 steps, unfortunately, because they don't understand.
Because they can't even get to step 2, where you have faith, where you have the faith that there is this higher power who you can hand all of this over to, who can support you and help you and guide you through it, which is really sad, really.
I think what helped me is that I was already into spiritual practices. Obviously, that's how I met you. That's how I met the girls. We were already doing a lot of work together as a group. And I think if I hadn't have done that, it might have been a lot darker for me. But I was already working on myself quite a bit before I lost myself, if you know what I mean. So that was crushed out of me as well. If I was having a meditation, burst in the door and ruin it, you're not having time to yourself.
You weren't allowed that time to yourself. No.
I wasn't allowed even to go to the meditation group. So but the 12 steps I've come across, and I have found them interesting because I've kind of done bits of it without knowing there was such a thing.
Yeah, well, it's all very connected to anyone who has a spiritual practice or even a spiritual outlook on life would have, would be familiar with a lot of the concepts within the 12 steps, because I know in my work I work a lot on maintaining my faith and surrender and soul searching and acceptance, forgiveness. That is all part of my spiritual process, just in life in general, and looking back upon my life and things that have gone wrong in my life, and with everybody. My mind's gone completely blank.
I think you'd said that all there, really. But you've always, as long as I've known you, which must be 6, 7 years now, you've always been very good with your meditation in the morning. And there's only been times when you've wavered, but you've always, like you say, had faith all the way through. And it's marvelous, actually, to see you being like that, because you've kept yourself at a high vibration most of the time. I know we all have our moments, but mostly you bounce out of it and you're like, right, back to it again. Different deities, obviously we've explored our paganism and our Hindu deities and all that kind of thing, and it's working out what is all of this. Celtic deities we've been into, haven't we? And it's all something, it all stems from something. It's all personification of an energy, as far as I'm concerned, and I think that we've had lots of discussion about, but it does help it's a focus as well. It's something to focus on.
Oh yeah, definitely. So just to carry on with the 12 steps, sorry, we got to number 7, which was humility. Which was humility and asking for the higher power to support you, which is when you said, this is work that you've done yourself recently, asking for support, and you feel like you've received that support.
Yeah, I think so.
I think sometimes you just know when the universe has got your back, don't you? You've been told so often as well with your signs and synchros that the universe is there in the moments when you're feeling at your lowest. That's when all the numbers start going crazy, and we had this discussion in the first podcast, actually. It's the universe telling you, this higher power telling you, we're here, we're supporting you. So then you step 8. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, you go online, you think, oh, look up, what does that mean? And each one, 333 means 20 different things. And you're like, actually, I just realised it's obviously the universe just sending me a sign. I don't see it as specific signs anymore. I had all the numbers from 000 to 999, all on number plates, and then all the 1111s and everything, which is my birthday anyway, obviously. So, it was obviously, that's all it was just giving me a little nod of, just don't give up, we're here.
That's it. Exactly that. Cool. So so step 8 is willingness to make amends to those harmed. So once you've accepted the things that you've done, you've asked for support from the higher power, then you step into the energy of willingness to make amends, and then forgiveness for forgiving yourself, self-forgiveness, I would imagine, and making amends, maybe asking other people for forgiveness as well. And then 11 is maintaining spiritual progress, is what you were saying about what I've been doing over the last however many years since you've known me. It's consistency and doing it on a regular basis. I mean, more days than not, I will meditate, I will do what my little spiritual routine. And I notice a difference in my mental health if I don't do that. So step 10 is consistency and maintaining that, and being committed to your spiritual practice, I suppose, and to your recovery. I mean, you've got to be committed to your recovery. You've got to. I know from giving up smoking that if you don't know in your mind 100% that you're, for me, I knew 100% I just wasn't going to smoke again. I just knew I wasn't. And it wasn't a case of counting the days. I know with the recovery programs, they do kind of, they give you, they acknowledge when you've gone so long without a drink, and it's and it's, you know, it's a form of encouragement and support, and it lifts you up, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who need that. But I found that when I quit smoking, I didn't need to count the days that I'd gone since my last cigarette. And I know that an addiction to cigarettes is nothing like an addiction to alcohol, and it's nothing like an addiction to, you know, really hard drugs, but it was still an
Yeah.
addiction that I never thought I would ever be able to kick, and I did. And it was all about my mindset. I just knew that I was never going to have another cigarette again. I just knew I was never going to smoke again. And I just,
Yeah.
it's when they say, you know, if you want to kick it, just stop smoking and then never smoke again. You make up your mind and you know that you're never going to smoke again. So it's maintaining your spiritual progress, and being committed to it.
Yeah.
And then
Definitely.
step 11 is making contact, it was called, but step 11 is about speaking to this higher power, speaking to God, communicating and asking to be shown what is your purpose, why am I here, you know, what is my higher purpose, and discovering what your path is, what your real purpose is in life. And then step 12 is service, and being in service to others. And I just think that's amazing. And then there's a whole, following on from that, there's a whole another step of 12 traditions, which I think is to support you as you're carrying out step 12 of being in service to others, following on from your experience. So that's what we're doing here, really, isn't it? You've been through this and now you want to help other people. And you can only help other people by speaking about your own personal experiences. So this is really what we're trying to do in this podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of my main goals now that I'm strong enough to do that is to work with women who've been domestically abused. So that is my next step, is to, it's funny because I didn't know about that business. That is one of my main goals, is that is what I want to do for a job, is be either domestic abuse counsellor or outreach worker, because I feel I've got that knowledge now, so many years of going through it. I can just see it just like that, and I can help people with that. And I've really been doing that accidentally. People have been appearing at my door even that have been stuff, as you know. So and they just, people like that are attracted to me now. It's just they're flocking at me, and they obviously, I haven't said anything, they just know, or they're being guided to me now because I've got that knowledge, without sounding egotistical, because I've been through it. I've got the knowledge. So and I'm looking forward to it, actually.
So does that give you strength? Does that give you motivation and kind of inspiration to continue on with your healing and your recovery? Because you've still got a fairly long way to go in terms of your own recovery, haven't you? So does that,
I think that will be part of it. I think that will be part of it, because one of the things I said, I had to give an interview to the police about all of this. It was a 4-hour interview. It's horrendous. Had to go through everything in a video, like in front of a video. Awkward, horrible questions. But at the end of it, she said, "And what did you hope to achieve from this? Do you want him to go to prison?" I said, "No, I don't, actually. I don't. What I want is for him to never do this to another person again. I want him to know, and I want this to not have been in vain, all these years of my life." But at that point, when I said that to her, which is all recorded, I didn't know what I meant by that. But I think I do now. I think that's because I had to go through all that suffering, basically, to help other people. So hopefully that is what, not hopefully, that's what I will be doing.
Well, it goes back to what you said at the start of the video as well. If you had been aware of the signs, if you had been aware that what he was doing to you was manipulative and controlling, then you might have had the strength, you know, you would have been well informed enough to not stand for it at that time. So what you can do now to help out is to raise awareness of what the signs are, and to help other women who are perhaps at the start of their relationships to recognize those signs and give them, you know, the information and the knowledge that they need to recognize that before it gets so far developed that they're in that person's control.
Well, I was going to some outreach groups, obviously for support from other women, and some of them were quite a bit younger than me, and they were starting off how I did. Oh, I had to bite my tongue. I felt like I'd already got to that stage where I know what this is now, and I was like, zip it, because they're all sat there going, and then this, and my outreach worker, she's not very spoken. She just lets them talk, really. I don't know whether that's part of her job, but as far as I know, it's not. I think she should really be saying, well, that's a flag, that's a warning sign. But she wasn't saying too much, really. And I felt that I knew that I wasn't supposed to be in that group, really. I was supposed to be doing her job. That's how, and that sounds awful, but that's how I felt. And that's when I started to realise, this was before all the COVID nonsense, but that's when I started to realise that that's what I probably wanted to do, because I was getting a bit psyched up, thinking I can help these women, I can do this. And I know how to tell them, not obviously tell them, but trying to explain to them what the red flags are. And look, you need to really be worried about. They'd be finding new boyfriends after an abusive relationship, and all the signs were there that they'll go into another one yet again. And I'd be thinking, oh no. So I had that knowledge, really. So yeah, something I want to do.
So what do you, on a day-to-day basis now, what is it that keeps you strong and keeps you away from going to the shop and buying a bottle of wine? What is it that helps you just in your day-to-day life to stay off the wine now?
Because I've got children for over or anything, you're still not fully right. What helps me to stay off the booze and not go down to the shop is it's a bloody long walk to Aldi. No, I'm joking. Not really. I did that hundreds of times in a week. No, it's not that. It's my children, basically. The fact that I'm numb after, so that on the night of the drinking, you have a few, like 3 or 4 glasses of wine, you might dance around your kitchen, you might have a great time, think, fuck you, excuse my French, but you might think, oh, I'm here, I've got my own house now, I'm 3 hours away from him, he's gone. And then the next day you're all like, again. So it's a depressant, isn't it? So the fact that I know it depresses me, I know it makes me lack motivation, obviously new relationships in the future, it could cause problems for. So I know that that's something that if I ever, with friendships, family, everything, I think it can spoil that, because you can put off things the next day. So you'll say, oh, you really look forward to doing that, and then you have a bottle of wine the night before, and then the day comes and you're like, I'd rather just sit here and just tidy my house or put a bit of washing on, and that's not exciting, is it? I could have gone and done this. So I realised that my motivation wasn't there, and it was numbing me more and probably depressing me more. So I just thought, no, not doing it anymore. And I even think that I could go out probably in 2 weeks' time for a night with somebody, go out with friends, have a bottle of wine with them, and then not need it the next day. I don't feel, and I don't know what happened. Maybe it's the help I was asking for. I think it's the support that I've had, because that's one of the main things I wanted to say here. The main thing that you need when you go through something like this is supportive friends and family. Now, my family weren't supportive. They basically left me to it. And actually, that made it rock bottom. Lost friends because they didn't know what was going on. Obviously, he had said whatever he'd said, because that's a smear campaign that the narcissist does. You fly in monkeys to make you look even worse than what you actually are. You don't know all this is going on. So your friends and family drop away, and you don't realise that they're believing the narcissist. You've got no idea. You're completely innocent, because you wouldn't do that yourself. As you know, there's nothing like that I haven't got a bone like that in my body. So I think the main thing that you have to have is try and find supportive friends and family when dealing with this type of abuse, as it's extremely clever and manipulative, and you have to remove toxic people and situations from your life, even if that includes friends that you thought were friends, family members you thought would be there for you. If they're not there, 21 that's what time it is, if they're not there for you and they are toxic, even if they were close to you, so you thought, you have to remove those people, because you cannot heal yourself with toxic people in your life. So that would be one of the things that I would give advice to people. If somebody is continuously not supportive and detached, unavailable, not caring what you're going through, leaving you to it because you're too much of a problem, you're too, I went through all of that. Oh, she's depressed, or she's tearful all the time. Or I'd phone somebody specific family members crying upset, and they'd be like, oh, she's just a problem, this problem Alison again. And what I realized was, I know who my true friends are, and I know who's really there for me, and my circle's very small now, but I'm ready to allow new people. And it's now that I've let all of those people go, new exciting fresh people with very similar views on the world and very similar goals to me are popping into my life now. So yeah, ready to start afresh and just get rid of that old past. And now that I'm here as well, all the way away from where I was, that's been a massive help, is getting out of that area, all the memories, the triggers. Getting out of my marital home was the best thing I've ever done. I tried to hang on to it for the kids and for the space, so that I could have all my children 1 bedroom each, and it was an ideal space. I was growing all my vegetables. I've lost all of that. I don't have that anymore. I've got a tiny house, but I don't actually care anymore. I've dropped all of that. That was ego, that was materialism. I'm not materialistic, but you know, trying to hang on to that house. Why would I want to hang on to a house where I'd spent constant hours of abuse in there? So learning to drop all those thoughts has been a huge help to me, not to keep on thinking about the past, and just look future, don't look back. Never look back. It just holds you there, holds you in the past.
Yeah, definitely. So you just know that you're better off without it. It's your mindset. You've just got your mindset on your future now.
Yeah.
With the knowledge that you're just not gonna go there again. It's that faith, isn't it? You've got to have that unwavering faith.
Yeah.
Step two, once you've acknowledged that there is a problem that you need to get rid of, you've got to have faith that you're going to do it. Whatever it is that's creating that faith in you, whether it's a higher power that you can that you can surrender everything up to. I mean, do you feel that you're being supported by a higher power throughout all of this?
I know I am. Yeah. Otherwise, when I was in my darkest place, which you sent me that book, it was very strange. I'd just been talking to my friend David on the phone, I think we were, and I heard this thud through the door, and it was a Sunday, and I'd just been talking to him about Dark Night of the Soul, and we got into a conversation about it. So I said, oh, there's something coming through my door. I'm just going to go see what that is. You had sent me the book Dark Night of the Soul, and that book is brilliant. I'm still, because of the PTSD, I find it hard to read. I find it hard to concentrate still. That's something I've not got back yet, but I'm getting there with that. I'm managing to read a few pages and actually take it in and not just go, oh, the words are all jumbled. I felt like I was dyslexic at one point. I couldn't write things. I couldn't deal with paperwork, nothing. But now, that book came through the door, and it was just random because it was a Sunday and it came through the post because it was on Amazon, wasn't it? And it was just such funny timing. And that was one of the points where I thought, this is something weird here. There's something going on. But I thought I was going to end up in a shithole. And the more I focused on that, I've lost my home. That was my home. All the money in it that could have gone to the kids or could have got me and Matilda a better place to live. I was focusing on that. Awful. Everything's gone wrong. Everything's happened to me. It's all happening to me. And the more you do that, the more things don't happen. So I remember one day, it was a really sunny day, and I thought, I'm not fucking living in a shithole. I decided, and I was like, right, I know where I want to live. And I drove Matilda to the hills, and we were looking at the sun coming down. I said, as we drove back through Whitley Woods, I was like, I want to live there. That's where I want to live. And then obviously I got offered two places, didn't I? And then suddenly, within about to accept the second house I was offered, which I didn't want to accept at all, they offered me the new build, and I couldn't really be happier now with what I've got, even though I've still not got it sorted. I've not got carpets and curtains and all that kind of thing. I'm getting there. Some lovely people come in and help me put some curtains up in certain rooms, and somebody's come and put carpet down. People are sort of, the universe is giving me help, which is motivating me to help myself in some ways. When somebody's kind to you, and I think kindness is a massive thing. Be kind to people, and when somebody shows you kindness, you're like, oh, and then before you know it, you're wanting to show kindness, and then you realize the world is not all bad. It's not a massively horrible place. It's
about momentum, isn't it? And when you get in that place of lack and focusing on what you're missing, it snowballs in the negative. But then all it takes is one person to show you a little bit of kindness, to give you that lift, to get you up into that positive, higher vibration. And then again, it can start snowballing again. but in a positive momentum rather than the negative. Okay, so
you know my darkest problem, because you've go on, sorry, it lagged a bit there. I didn't know what you were saying. Go on.
I can't remember what I was going to say.
I was just wanting to say about my darkest day, my very darkest day, because even though it's something very personal, it's still something that happened, and I don't want anybody else to feel that they just don't have the will to live anymore. I took 2 bottles of wine to the Lake District, 2 packets of tablets. I enjoyed my day. I was driving there, listening to my favourite tracks, thinking, nobody cares about me, that's it. I'm done. I'm not even bothered anymore. I had no care about anything other than I just want out of here. I'm done. And now, I mean, I'd look at that as selfish maybe years ago, but you don't actually understand you're being selfish. You don't know what you're doing. It's like something flicks the switch and you're like, finally the relief. I don't have to do this anymore. And to hit that rock bottom, that was nothing to do with alcohol. That was just to do with losing my children to their dad. You know, Christmas time, wasn't it, just before Christmas? And the only thing that stopped me was the thought of my children and how they'd feel whilst I'd sat there and thought about it. When it went dark and I was looking at this beautiful scenery, I'd actually driven myself to a suicide spot, I was told. Lo and behold, I ended up at a suicide spot. Didn't know, it was amazing there. And what got me through that was talking to people, including my boy's dad, you know, Claire, lots of people that I'd spoken to that kept me going that day. And then the kind man who drove past and knocked on the window, "You all right, love?" I was like, "Yeah, just leave me. I don't want anything. Just bye." You know, I was like, I'm fine. I'm just sitting here. I'm just chilling." And he was like, "I don't think she's chilling." And he phoned the police, didn't he? And that was my rock bottom moment, which I can't understand now, because looking back to that point, I'd never do it. I don't think I even would have done it, but I thought I was gonna. I thought I might.
I thought you were going to as well, Ali. I was terrified. I'll never forget that night.
Your brain doesn't know what it's doing. It switches off. I now have understanding of people. I have suicide awareness, because I still don't think I would have done it. I don't think I could have done that to my children. But if I hadn't had children or friends like yourself, and you know, I would not have. I just thought, my family didn't care about me. Nobody did, apart from my few friends, and they'd be okay. They'd get over it, kind of thing. And your brain just goes, and it's called disassociation. When you get to that stage in your life, you disassociate from your whole body, from everything, and you just, it's like, it's not you don't care, it's you just don't know how to live anymore. You don't know what you're doing. Your brain doesn't want to carry on with the pain anymore. And for people to be dismissing the fact that what I'd been through as well, obviously not you and not my close friends, but some people just dismissing it. Or I was getting messages from his ex-girlfriend, "Oh, don't play the victim, Alison. She doesn't know what she did then. She was the one that flipped the switch that made me lose the kids. She was the one that did it," basically, because I thought, now he's got her bullying me as well. And she has been an accomplice to my demise, and she doesn't know who I am. She's never met me. She doesn't know. She's just believed everything. And okay.
Sorry, we had a bit of a technical problem there, so I just had to pause the recording for a second. But we're going to wrap up our podcast now. But I just want to ask Ali one more question. So you've just described the night when you were contemplating suicide, and you took yourself off to a place in the Lake District, and it was quite a intense, scary night. I remember, as your friend, not knowing where you were, knowing that you'd got this drink in the car with you, and you'd just gone off on your own. After that night, after that awful experience that you had, was that the catalyst for you then to actually decide, right, that's it, I need to stop drinking now, I need to get my life back?
No, it wasn't actually, believe it or not. No.
So you can get
point. No, right. No, it wasn't that date. No, things were progressively worse from there, really, because it was Christmas coming up. I was without my children for Christmas for the first time, and no, I got progressively worse after that. And then I knew that I had to break up with my partner that I'd been with for nearly 4 years. Then I had to obviously move out of the house that we tried to move into together. That was like hell. I just thought, this is the world hates me, God hates me, everything hates me. So no, it wasn't that. It went on for some time after that where I got probably worse with the drink. And it wasn't until I settled into this house and I moved in here and I thought, I'm away from it all. I don't need to do this anymore, even if that means not being able to see my kids as much, because that's detaching myself from him. It was moving here, my own space, which a few people told me that would be the case. But then I did into a few patterns here because I didn't know here at the time. It was like a kind of a brave move now, but at the time I didn't have a massive amount of choice, but I knew I was here for a reason. I just knew I was here for a reason. And I think it was more, just feeling groggy actually, rather than anything I'd done or said. Or I don't think those things were caused by the drink, even though they probably didn't help. Before, leading up to the Lake District day, I didn't drink for a few days because I was trying to get on well with my ex-partner at the time when we were still together. So I hadn't drunk for a few days, but then I just thought, what am I doing? My life is a waste. I'm a waste of space. And I've been told that for so long as well. Everything I did, couldn't even wash up dishes right. Everything I'd done, he'd say, well, you haven't done that, or you haven't done it right. And it was everything I was doing in my new house with my new partner. It broke us up because I was feeling like I was being told what to do again. He was going to be the same as my ex. So if I could try and explain that better. So everything was a trigger, everything, and it just got worse and worse, and the triggers were worse and worse. What if he comes in and everything's not done perfect? What if he wants everything done perfect? And all of a sudden then everything switched off, and then I couldn't do anything. I couldn't motivate myself. I was trying to tidy up, walking from room to room, like, I don't know how to do this anymore. And I just felt like just crawling into a corner and dying, really, until I moved to this house. This is my own space now. There's nobody telling me what to do what the hell I want, sod you all. And this is my own life now, my own space. Happened to me. I don't want to say never, but I don't think it's really. I don't want that stress and strain. So it was more just me going, right, I need a life. I don't want to have no life anymore. I want to have had a purpose on this earth, not just to have had my children. That wasn't my purpose. It was one of my purposes, but it give life to somebody. But and also my little granddaughter as well. She's come into my life. She was a new spark of energy, and I just thought, she does not need to know that's what her nan did, and that kind of thing. So it's lots of things really, but I wouldn't say it was. No, the Lake District was probably my lowest point, which I couldn't really get out of, and I didn't know how to. But onwards and upwards.
So now. that night would be your soul searching, and what was not that you wronged anyone that night, but that's a sort of, that was out of character for you. That was the behavior that you displayed as a result of what you've been through. I mean, it wasn't because of an addiction, and it wasn't because of your dependency on alcohol, although that did play, that was a factor in some of your behavior that night. But that night for you is your step 4, really, isn't it? If you're looking at the 12-step program, that would be your soul searching step 4. And you've gone through all of the steps yourself, maybe not in a linear fashion, going from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, but really in your experience, in your in your journey from when you were with this man to where you are now, you have gone through all of the 12 steps at some point and at some stage, and now you're at the point where you're sorry, say that again.
I think probably because something was guiding me, even though I didn't know it was at the time. Something was guiding me to where I am now, the place I live in. I love where I live now. I love the area. Love the people around here. Met some wonderful people that have been so helpful and made me laugh. Brought my life back Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, Ali, with me, and with whoever's
Hopefully it'll help
listening.
somebody else who's inspired to not, you know, we all hit rock bottom at times, but it's not the end. And that's what I keep trying to say to people. That's not the end. You aren't this, you aren't what you feel you are now. You've got so much more potential, and you will come out of this if you give yourself that chance and just believe. The faith that I wasn't going to live in a shithole, the faith that I'm not having that for my daughter. We are not. We've been through enough. We're not living. Faith, keep it.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right, Ali. Should we leave it on that note? Faith.
All right.
Keep the faith. Maybe that could be the title. Keep the faith. All right, lovely.
Definitely. Bye, darling. Love you lots.
Yeah, and we'll be back
talk later
next week, hopefully, on syncing up the psychos.
Definitely. What's syncing up the psychos we'll be talking about next week? You never know. Could be anything.
Take care. Bye everyone. Thank you for listening. If you listen this far, bye.
Bye.